Welcome back. Today we're diving into an explainer that completely flips our usual ideas about spiritual growth right on its head. We're unpacking an essay by Xu Feng called Standards of Perfect Human Nature. And honestly, what's so fascinating here is this massive paradox the author presents. The idea is that true transcendence, reaching that supreme state of life, it doesn't actually come from magic or unlocking some secret supernatural shortcut. Nope, it comes entirely from mastering the absolutely mundane, everyday, normal aspects of just being a human being. It's this incredibly grounded, highly structured approach to life's ultimate goals. Okay, let's dive straight into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with perfect human nature, move on to the 8 conditions, look at the laws of nature, discuss the trap of exceptional functions, and wrap up with transcending through the ordinary.
Let's kick things off with part 1, perfect human nature.
So what's really fascinating here is the sheer scale of the stakes involved. The author is arguing that achieving this perfect human nature is the absolute prerequisite for, well, pretty much everything good. On an individual level, it's framed as the absolute requirement for your life to enter a supreme life space and find true happiness. But it definitely doesn't stop there. Globally, the text presents perfect human nature as literally the only way to establish justice and peace. As the quote lays out, without it, mankind is doomed to this endless cycle of competition, confrontation, and war. So the philosophy here is proposing a direct, unbreakable link between your personal inner state and global harmony.
Moving right along to part 2, the 8 conditions.
Now, the text lays out a very specific 8-point framework, and what jumps out immediately is how it beautifully blends these high-minded spiritual ideals with incredibly grounded practical behavior. You've got sweeping concepts, right? Revering the creator, gods, Buddha, and nature. But then, right alongside that is the basic requirement to just be modest, honest, and to simply love life and labor. It actually asks people to completely drop their desire to win or fight and to stay totally calm whether times are good or bad. It's really a comprehensive checklist for how to behave. But the true heartbeat of this text, the one concept the author returns to again and again, is condition number 7, conforming to natural laws and not seeking the abnormal.
Let's see how this builds in section 3, the laws of nature. We really need to define exactly what this means in the context of the source text. Xu Feng defines natural law as this invisible, totally unbreakable force. It's the law that exists within absolutely everything. It determines how things operate, how they develop, and the entire order of the universe. According to the text, violating this law is actually the main reason people get sick or run into negative events in their lives. Basically, everything that lives in accordance with it thrives, and everything that violates it dies.
To prove this point, the author scales things all the way up to the cosmos. Think about the movement of the solar system through the galaxy. It isn't random at all. It's natural law. A comet showing up in Earth's visible space exactly every 76 years? That's not a coincidence. It is natural law operating on this grand cosmic schedule. But it applies just as strictly right here on the earthly scale. The climate, the changing of the seasons, a tiny plant germinating, growing, and finally flowering, this is all the exact same law at work. The author uses a really relatable, grounded example here. If a farmer decides to violate the natural order and just sow his seeds in autumn, well, he simply won't have a harvest. The law is completely inflexible. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of the text when we arrive at the human scale. The author actually places birth, aging, eating, drinking, peeing, and pooping right alongside the movement of a galaxy. I mean, think about that. These incredibly mundane biological functions are presented as sacred, inescapable rules of the universe. You eat, you drink, you use the bathroom, you sleep at night. If you don't do these things, you die. Biology is destiny here. Being a biological entity is, in itself, following the natural law. Which brings us to part 4, the trap of exceptional functions. This leads us to the primary conflict in the text. Human beings inevitably want to be special, right? We want to bypass these rules. The author notes that it is completely unconscious and totally normal to want to be outstanding or to look for exceptions. We all kind of want to be transcendent. And if that desire just stays in your head, the text says, hey, that's a perfectly normal phenomenon. But the danger, what the text calls the abnormal phenomenon, is when people actually take action to try and control the forces of nature to gain exceptional functions. Think supernatural powers, magic, or mystical shortcuts. The text firmly warns that trying to do this does way more harm than good, actively distorting normal mental activities and ultimately ruining your life. To ground this warning, the author cites a massive historical example. During China's reform and opening up, literally millions upon millions of people engaged in these huge waves of self-refinery and spiritual improvement activities. But because so much of this was focused on pursuing exceptional functions, which, remember, essentially violates natural laws, incredibly few of these millions actually gained any special powers, and even fewer actually understood the Tao. The sheer volume of people who tried and failed is used as concrete proof that you simply cannot cheat the system.
The stance of the source material is absolute on this point. Self-improvement is absolutely not for obtaining superpowers. In fact, pursuing these exceptional functions leads people down an evil path that completely distracts from true spiritual growth. As the quote directly states, taking a shortcut is really just wasting your time. More haste, less speed. Attempting to bypass biology and bypass reality to become special, that actually prevents you from ever reaching that supreme life space we talked about at the very beginning.
And finally, part 5, transcending through the ordinary. So, the crucial point is, if we can't use shortcuts, how do we actually get there? The answer is clearly outlined in this academic analogy from the text. You can't get a doctorate without first passing through primary school, high school, and college. Transcending, that is the doctorate. But being an ordinary human being, eating, drinking, working, resting, going through illness and old age, that is the primary school. You absolutely must lay down the foundation of everyday, mundane reality before you can ever hope to reach those higher levels. So here we see the profound paradox at the heart of Shui Feng's text. On one side, we have the mundane foundation, acting exactly like a common, ordinary person who just goes to work, studies, eats, and uses the bathroom. On the other side, the transcendent result, extending life to a higher space and realizing your dreams. The source material argues impartially, but very firmly, that the transcendent result is exclusively unlocked by strict, humble adherence to the mundane foundation. You don't transcend by escaping being human. You transcend by being fully, fundamentally human, in complete accordance with nature. And doing this requires intense focus. The author leaves us with this very specific, actionable directive. Take back the messy and scattered and floated mind. Stop looking for exceptions. Stop seeking the abnormal or the supernatural. Set your mind, find your direction, follow nature, and simply do the hard work of living an ordinary life well. That, according to the text, is the absolute only way you won't be caught by the devil of distraction. It's such a fascinating framework that really asks us to totally reevaluate our daily routines. Eating breakfast or going to sleep isn't a distraction from spiritual growth, according to this text. It is the very fabric of it. So I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on today based on our explainer. In your own life, are you rushing to find a shortcut to success and happiness? Or are you putting in the foundational work of mastering the art of being ordinary? Thank you so much for joining me to explore these ideas, and I'll see you next time.